Hey everyone, and welcome to today's video. So we're just looking at the F56 again. So one of the things I wanted to walk you guys through is sort of where do you get started on a project like this. So obviously you find your listing, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on eBay, you find a categorized car that you're interested in. What do you do next? So obviously you can run a check on the car. So there's lots of different websites you can sort of do a check to see, has it been categorized? What I also managed to get with mine, so I'll put a link in the description to the website I used, not affiliated with them or anything, but it's just a company I used for this check. I managed to actually get the Copart listing, well, the images from the Copart listing, so I could see actually when it sort of went from the insurance company to the auction, what state it was in. And I think that's really good to get hold of, because what that actually allows you to do is you know whether the person that you're buying off may have brought it from Copart, realised there was more damage than what they originally anticipated and have dressed it up, maybe put the bumpers on to make it look a little bit better and a little bit less damage, hide some things, etc. So it's always worth looking into the background of why. And if you can find the previous owner of that car as well that had it during the accident, then even better. So obviously you've been, go and have a look at the car, take someone with you that knows what they're looking for in terms of crash damage, a mechanic, etc. Or you can pay companies like the RAC to go and check over a car, those sort of things. So get someone to take a look at it that knows what they're doing and see if there's any hidden damage. So I obviously went and took a look at the car with a torch in the daylight so I could see into all the different areas, just check those front rails and things like that for any damage, and I couldn't see any. So if you're happy, obviously, make your arrangements, get the car back. And what I'm now is in that process of, I've got the car on my driveway, what do I do next? So for me, it's all about working out what's actually damaged and what you need to replace. So I've done lots of work in terms of getting the car up in the air and looking underneath. So I'll put that clip in a minute. But what I've then started to do as well is look at all the bits that were left in the boot and try and work out, okay, what's damaged, what can be refitted and reused. So for me, there were good things like, if you look here, the LED side lights, they were actually in the boot of the car. So they were taking out the broken bumper and stored. So actually, they could cost me a fortune to replace. I've now got those and can reuse them on the car. All these sort of little clips and bolts that are left, yes, the bracket's broken, but I can reuse those clips. Another thing was all these connectors that you can see here. So what I actually did was work through each of those one by one, reconnecting things like the parking sensors, the side lights. And then what I've got is actually a little label printer. And if you see, what I'm doing is wherever I identify what a cable does, so you can see this is the brown pedestrian sensor. I'm labelling it up so I know when it comes to rebuilding the car what each one does. Yeah, so you can see all I use is one of these little cheap label printers, and I can label up everything. So whether it's a connector, a bracket, whatever it is, so I know exactly where it needs to go when it comes to rebuilding it. If you're taking anything apart to assess the damage, bag up. So I've got like sandwich bags in the garage that I'm bagging up every single bit or bolt or clip that I'm taking off. Let's say it was on this front crash beam, I'd actually then tie that sandwich bag to that crash beam, so I know exactly those are the bolts for that part, just to make your life easier when it comes to rebuilding it. So I've obviously made a massive order for this front end, so I'm going to something a little bit different, and I'll explain that in a future video. But I'm not just going for, I'm going for a mixture of used parts and brand new, just because some of what I want to do you can't get on a damaged car at the moment, so you can't get hold of the parts. Some of it, like the crash beams and things like that, you can get hold of on eBay, and eBay and Facebook Marketplace are your friend when it comes to rebuilding any of these cars. There's even little things like this fan. So this was in a plastic shroud, so if you go and get that in the garage, so that is about somewhere down here. You can see that is completely smashed to pieces, no use. However, the fan that bolts into that still works, so I was able to test it, make sure it all works. Therefore, I've probably saved myself £100, £150 not having to buy a new fan. I can just buy that shroud. So lots of little tips like that when it comes to just working on these cars. So what I'll do is I'll insert the video where I get the F56 up in the air and investigate the damage underneath. Okay, so you can see the F56 is up in the air now. So I just want to get underneath and check out what's going on and why it was a Cat S. So you can see obviously all this at the front. So these are damaged, that's damaged. So it looks like the impact's been here and this has been forced upwards. And that sort of would work out why this has got an impact underneath. The fan may have got smashed as all that shifted backwards. Because the fan isn't in a million pieces, it's only a couple of mountings that are broken. It's these mountings that join to this, which would make sense. So the fan should be an easy fix. So this arm here, obviously, these all bolt off. This bolts off with a couple of bolts. I can't see any ripples or anything in this solid piece. I mean, if we get under the car and we look, it's quite difficult to show on camera. Let's zoom the lens out so you can see. It all, right now anyway, so obviously this unbolts here, so that's easy. There's no damage, zoom out a bit, no damage to the underside of the engine at all, so that's really good to see. Again, this one actually doesn't even look, I don't even know whether that natural kink is there, but I might as well replace that arm anyway while I'm buying the rest of it. I don't think it's going to be much more. So these 100% need to be replaced. But when I'm in here, like, I know obviously that I'm not going to see much from looking at the subframe underneath, but none of that. There's just no damage. Nothing seems to have shifted. Everything at the moment seems to be in really good condition. Obviously we've got the space where the fan was damaged, which we know about. So like this is the bit I was worried about being damaged, but there doesn't seem, and I know it might only be minimal, there doesn't seem to be much there. Obviously I've got connections in terms of getting this onto a jig if needed. But if you look all the way down there, there just doesn't seem to be any damage. I know there was less impact on this side, but yeah, it's an interesting one to try and work out why it was a Cat S, because none of these bits are welded in. If these were welded, I'd understand, but like this may be damaged, but this again is all bolt on. This is bolt on, that's not damaged. So I'm really struggling to see why it was categorized as Cat S. People that are watching, please shout out if you've got any ideas and I'm missing something. The only thing I can think of is this actual yellow bit is bent out one way or the other, or bent up. But I'm not going to obviously know that until I've got all the parts, start lining things up and see if things line up. Worst case, get the front end on. If things don't line up, take it to the jig shop that fixed the BRZ in terms of, it just needed a little bit of adjustment. That was a lot, but a little bit of adjustment on the BRZ, and that was all absolutely fine. So yeah, I'm going to start stripping parts off and bagging up all the nuts and bolts on all of this, because again, this looks untouched, so I think that's all savable. Obviously I've got the headlight, so that's absolutely fine. I know some of the clips are broken on it, but apparently they can be repaired. So worst case, I have to get a new headlight for the passenger side. But yeah, it's just interesting just delving into the car and just trying to work out what's gone on. I think it's obvious that there's been an impact in the middle, whether it's like a rock or a tow bar or something that it's maybe gone into the back of. Yeah, it's very odd, but exciting at the same time, because at the moment, I think it's going to be this, the beam that goes across here, the beam that goes across there, the bracket that goes between these two. Obviously, there's lots of little bits of plastic and stuff, but they're the main things, and the fan. So I'll get a bigger intercooler anyway, so that doesn't bother me that I'm losing that. So yeah, let's see where we get on to with a bit more investigation. Okay, so what I would then do is go online, take a look at any used parts. You can, obviously everything you take off pretty much has a part number on it. So whether you use that to work out sort of what bumper you need, what parking sensors you need, those sort of things, Or I'll share a little tip with you, is there's a website called Real OEM. So I'll put the details up here now in terms of the URL. What you do is basically you put in the details of the car that you are trying to find the part numbers for. You put the year, the type of car it is. So it's a mini hatchback, it's a Cooper S, it's manual, it's a European right-hand drive, it's a 2015 in this case. And it will give you sort of part diagrams that you can then write down the part numbers and go to Mini and say, this is the part I need, can I have a price? Or you can search on eBay or Google and Google that part number, and you'll be able to find sort of used parts on eBay using that part number. So that's a really helpful tip that I hope you guys enjoy, and it saves you a bit of time and money as well. Okay, so that was a little update in terms of the damage on the F56 that I've found so far. Fingers crossed, once all of the new parts turn up from Mini that I'm expecting this week, we'll be able to put the cross beams in there and see if they all line up. If they do, then hopefully there isn't any chassis damage in terms of being sort of twisted or out of place. We'll see. I think that'll be the test. If so, I do have a friend that has a friend with a jig that can actually put it on and straighten everything up. So we might have to go down that route. I don't quite know yet, we'll see. But if you found today's video entertaining, please hit that like button and subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you'll get alerts every time we update on the F56 and the R56 and the other cars. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.